Hey Reflections, it's been a while. I've taken some time to be selfish and do what I love, explore, experience, and learn who I am. It's been awesome, and once you take a break from everything, it's kind of hard to just pick up again, but there's this certain sense of galactic obligation that I feel, and an obligation to myself, because when I do these videos, essentially I'm doing them for myself. Now, today we are talking to Mikeadelic from Mikeadelic. Check him out on iTunes. I'm so excited to hear what he has to say today and just share it with you guys. It was amazing to share space and learn so much from somebody that I admire so much. We talk about the simulation, this weird alien simulation. We talk about premonition and psychic phenomena. We talk about this alien simulation that we're all experiencing collectively, magic, and so much more. I'm so excited because editing this video was just, it was a pleasure, and I could listen to it over and over and over, because just to hear him sing truth is just beautiful. And if you like this podcast, let me know. I do have another podcast with him that's just audio that I might put up if you guys give me feedback and want to hear more, because I do have that one with him as well. You could also find him on iTunes and check it out there. If you want to know what I'm doing, I will be creating another video in the very near future, along with the other podcasts that I do have. But this next one is just me talking about what I've been doing, the art I've been producing, and also the clothing. If you want some merch, go check out my store online on Etsy. Anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoy the show.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was trying to explain DMT to a friend yesterday. I interviewed this guy yesterday who wrote a book called DMT Alien Information Theory. It's incredible. His name's Dr. Andrew Gallimore, and he wrote like a paper with Rick Strassman from DMT the Spirit Molecule about extended state DMT trips. And it's like all...
You were talking about the person that you were interviewing?
Yeah, Dr. Andrew Gallimore, he co-authored a paper with Rick Strassman from DMT the Spirit Molecule about extended state DMT research. So this guy's wild. His book is wild. It's like, it was so cool. I can't wait to release it. I think I might release it today. But anyway, I was trying to explain DMT to a friend of mine, and like the space and that whole thing. And I was like, yeah, imagine like we're sitting here right now, because we were talking about like popping in the DMT realm and like the entities and the space, and it's almost the equivalent of if someone just burst through your door right now, some like crazy alien just came through your door and was like, "Hey, what's up?" And you would both just be freaked out. You'd be like, "Whoa, what are you doing here?" You know. Or if then like eventually you'd probably get used to it if it kept happening more and more. It'd be like, "Hey, welcome again. I don't know how long are you gonna stay." So I'm like, yeah, I'm wondering, like, are there like crazy, like interdimensional aliens smoking some kind of advanced space drugs that allow them to pop into our realm, and like this is a DMT experience for them?
Wow, interesting. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I often wonder that myself, especially with the lucid dreaming. You're always wondering, which dimension am I in? Where am I? But yeah, tell me more about this guy. He seems super interesting.
He's really interesting. He's a super smart guy. I forgot all of his like titles and stuff. Not nuclear. He's not nuclear. Molecular biologist, chemist, and scientist. I probably butchered that because I forgot. But very super smart guy. Teacher at the University of Okinawa in Japan, and he's just like really. He's trying to figure out what this kind of coded world is, because basically he's saying that like other psychedelics, like when you take LSD, when you take high doses of mushrooms, it's very similar to a DMT experience, and same thing with ayahuasca. But other kinds of psychedelics and drugs, they'll augment your reality. They'll make things kind of change and shift, and you'll get different kind of feelings and sensations from the environment. And he's saying that's all coded information. That's all, like, you know, our brain is just processing how we construct and build our worlds, like our environment, our reality, what we see, and then how we interpret what we see, and then how we process that, and then to create this construct. So he's like, you know, when you take DMT, you don't go into like an augmented space. It's not like, oh, the couch looks a little weird. It's like, no, there's something there that's not a couch. It's like a Flurgensnaug or something. So we don't have something that we don't have a word for. It's things are popping up and going, woo, look at this. And there's all kinds of, what is it? Where did it come from? How do we know about it? And I find that stuff really fascinating. And because also the experiences I've had, where I've had situations that have happened to me where there's no way that I could have possibly ever known the thing that I was shown to then communicate or do that thing. And it's like, where did that come from? So I'll give you an example. During the most profound ayahuasca trip of my life, I just started speaking Sanskrit. And like, I never knew anything about Sanskrit before that. I didn't know anything about it. And I just came out, and then I looked up the words that I was saying and what they meant. And it was like truth, God, one, like all these things. Sa, ka, ra, sha, su, ha. I was a little freaked out by it. So I'm like, I don't know if I want to like investigate it too much, because it's just so weird. But then when I did, I was like, well, this where did that come from? How did that happen?
To me, because the same stuff happens to me. Like, my partner and I, we will talk about things, and we'll talk about philosophy, and like, I'll just tell him something. He's like, that's in that book, you know that. And I'm like, I never read that.
Right. Yeah, you have no awareness of it whatsoever. So yeah.
Do you think we're like you said, picking up information from our atmosphere and interpreting that code into reality, and that's what's happening? Like, are we just grabbing information? Because like, that's what telepathy to me and all this like psychic phenomena is. Because I've been investigating a little bit. I haven't been too afraid, only because it's been happening for a while. And at first it really scared me, but now I'm just like, well, what the hell is this, and what can I learn, you know?
I'll just say real quick, like, the reason why it kind of frightened me a little bit was because I was weary of developing like a God complex, because I had this kind of feeling before where something really profound happened. I was like, oh my God, I have access to information that nobody else has, and like something special happened just for me. And so I'm like, I don't know if I really want to know too much. But then eventually, when I was able to kind of like manage that and get over it, I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. I can kind of learn about this and detach from it.
When you say the God complex, I had that as well. I did that in my very beginning in 2016. But then you start having people contact you, and they're having the exact same experience. So you're like, all right, so it's this thing that is activated within all of us, and it's encoded within our DNA to be activated, and it's all activating. So then you start realizing, oh, it's not just me, it's all of us, and it becomes really exciting. Because
it's encoded in our DNA. I mean, that's like, the more and more I think about this, the more I think about code. The more I think,
that's literally all I see. All I see is code. Like, in my hypnagogic states, in my altered states, all I see is flipping code, zeros and ones, different encryption keys, and certain things that, like, they're just these checkered dots, or like these checkerboards. And I just
That's the artwork on his book, DMT Alien Information Theory. It's like checkered, pixelated art.
that's what I see, and that's what I'm saying. We all see that because it's
Yeah.
it's reality. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's like the raw. I think my theory might be that it's this place of like the raw creation machine, like the raw information. That's where all the raw data is, which is so overwhelmingly colorful and infinitely creative, and just there's no limits to it and no ends.
Yeah.
And that's like a particular zone, and then like we're in a particular zone, and then we're encoded with stuff in our DNA and our biological makeup. And DMT and other psychedelics, they don't just exist as this thing on its own that has this property to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it's a symbiotic relationship. Like we have to commune with it. We have to imbibe with it and like ingest it and synchronize with it in order for it to produce this other world, which is, I mean, that's trippy just thinking about that in and of itself.
Oh, I know. And like, it's so interesting. So if a person is gone, where you got you there's like little markers and things that like little markers for me is the code, binary code, encryption keys, dots. I don't know binary, and not binary, but like it looks like Braille. I always see that. Different checkerboard patterns. I always see that. Grids, you're always seeing like grids, but they're like these green and bluish black colors or orange, always like old school computer colors.
Yeah, you're literally describing like the aesthetic of his book. Like he nailed it, and like I told him, I was like, you totally nailed it with this, because it's just like this is,
I gotta read that book. Like, I'm so excited now that you gave me that as a reference, because for so long I've been trying to, like, that's what my artwork is. That's what I've been trying to, again, like, translate, or you can't really talk about it. You just gotta show it. But I'd be really interested to know his perspective on it. But yeah, it does seem like we're filtering all of this stuff. And there's there are different layers to reality. And we're just seeing one. But then there's the subatomic particle layer, there's the energy layer, there's the magnetism and all of that. There's just so many
vibrational fields,
sound, frequency, all of that. So like geometry, so it's all just like different layers, and you're seeing that.
The Fibonacci sequence, right? Like, it's the flower of life. Like, it's really interesting how there's all of these texts, and there's all of these, Hermeticism, and the ancient texts from all over the world that talk about all these kinds of things that you recognize when you enter that psychedelic space. And you're like, oh, okay. Oh, this geometry lines up. I get that. Oh, this is kind of coded in a way, or this archetype is being present in my visual space. What does that mean? Like, why am I being shown this? Why that sort of thing? And mainstream dominant culture will just be like, wow, that's all relics from the past, so we don't care. But it's like, hey, I think there's more truth there than there is anywhere else.
Yeah. So I was overhearing this conversation at a festival, and this person, just like in passing, was saying, oh, well, sacred geometry was in all the great artworks, Leonardo da Vinci, and this and that. So they obviously knew something, but like, why did they put it in there? And then he was talking about sacred geometry, and he's like, oh, so there's a rise in sacred geometry. What is it, just supposed to save the world? You know what I mean? Like, just like a very, like, just trying to make it seem just this hocus pocus thing. But my response to that is, no, you're not here to save the world. You're here to save yourself. And through saving yourself, you're in turn saving the world, your own world. But the sacred geometry is more of like a symbol, an encoded symbol. Right. It's a subconscious symbol there. And you know what I mean? It's not about saving the world. It's about encoding these symbols, archetypal symbols, into things that have great meaning and value to us.
Totally, yeah.
So it's not about like saving the world, but evolving and becoming more self-aware and compassionate to ourselves, those around us. Nature, understanding all is nature, understanding all is technology. It's one and the same, understanding the paradoxes, and like just being chill.
yeah, totally. It's being chill. I mean, like, that's the principle behind sacred geometry is balance and harmony. You know, it's symmetrical, it's in sync, it's in tune, it's not going overboard and using too much, it's not too complex, it's just the right amount of complexity, you know. And it's like this coded, symbolic, cosmic array of breadcrumbs spread out through our world, like waiting for people to discover. When we interface with it, there's something that hits us inside that we know, that we remember. You know, because I think a lot of the psychedelic experience is a lot of remembering, getting to this place and being like, oh, this is familiar. And I don't really know why, but this is kind of familiar.
Deja vu.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask you, what made you decide to get on this path and be such a cool person?
Well, you know, I didn't have a choice. I was just really born cool, and I kept telling everyone, I don't want to be cool. I don't want to be cool. But, you know, it just kept coming through. No, I've always just felt, ever since I was born, ever since I could remember, I've always just felt like there's something more than just what I'm being told and shown and presented in front of me. And I had no idea what that was. I couldn't articulate it. I didn't know. It was just a feeling. It was just a feeling of, like, I was the kind of kid that was always like, why? Why? You have to go to school now. Why? Well, because you have to get an education. Why? Like, well, because, you know, and no one ever had good answers for me. So I was very frustrated, you know, And, you know, I think that I felt like, you know, I didn't really get like a good, fair treatment as a kid. And like Alan Watts says, that we have a tendency to treat children like candidates for humanity and not like actual human beings. You know, we're just like, okay, you know, bye now, go to sleep. Don't ask questions. Just do what you're told and follow the rules. I never liked that. And I kind of like really aggressively rebelled against that. So I kind of just looked at it as like, I sort of like, this is the way I feel, so I kind of have to follow the way I feel, and then whatever comes out of that will come out of that, you know. I did stand-up comedy for a little while in New York. That was great. I really enjoyed it, and it was fun, but I still didn't feel like I was totally in the place where I could communicate my truth and transform it into jokes yet. I'd been doing comedy for like 3 years, and so I just was like, well, I'm going to go find something more. So, you know, I backpacked around Southeast Asia. I went to Peru. I lived in an ayahuasca center and started the podcast. And I just feel like, okay, well, whatever my creative output, whatever like the medium for my transmission is, will manifest as long as I keep following this feeling of finding that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm always fascinated how similar everybody's stories are. Like, everybody has the same story, and that's why I love to hear them, because like we all like to think that we're so individual and special,
right?
But
and we're alone, and we're trapped, and it's us, and it's like no one else can understand, because that's what our society reinforces, and that's how the architecture and infrastructure of our world is designed to keep us separated, to keep us apart from, you know, like to feel like you're the only one, but you're not. We're all the same. We're all going on the same collective hero's journey together to discover our mission and purpose and passion to infuse this world with our gifts, you know?
And I think that's when the delusions of grandeur and the Messiah complex just diminishes, because it's just like, it's a collective experience. And I know a lot of people think otherwise, but there's both. There's the collective experience and there's the individual experience. And you have to understand there's both. Reality is not just,
as above, so below.
It's not just one way.
Right.
It's every which way you could possibly imagine. It's as a human perspective, it's very hard retraining your mind to be able to understand information that way.
Yeah. Well, I've been processing information since maybe like 2014, ever since I read this book, Finite and Infinite Games. And it's one of those things where, you know, I think that the good synchronicity of things happening, like you were talking about, putting yourself out in the world, putting your creativity out in the world, and then the people that you want to be a part of will come to you and join you. And I think you said it better than I just did, but like, you know, to that extent, and that kind of thing that's happening, it's like, well, we have this feeling, so track that feeling, and then these synchronicities come up, and like a book comes into your life or a person comes into your life, and you're like, oh, I kind of knew this, and like now it's like verbalized and manifested and reaffirmed. And so I like to think of things in terms of games, and I'm like, okay, cool, like we're in this kind of limited human game. And games have rules, and games have boundaries and borders, and that's what makes them fun. Because if you went to like watch like a football game and there was no rules, it would just be a bunch of guys punching each other in the face or throwing the football at each other. You know, it's like the form, the structure, the container that allows for the fun to occur happens because there's limitations. So that's like, we're in this kind of limited meat suit human earth game, but there's like the cosmic game, the infinite game, the soul game, and those two things are happening at the same time. And my theory or my view is that let's try and find where we can like surf on the wave in between the finite and infinite, and like create something that grabs from the infinite and brings it in the mortal, like material realm. And I think that's what artists do. I think that's what you're doing with your art. It's like, I'm going into this space and I'm bringing something back and I'm materializing it in this limited realm. But when people see it, they're hit with a remembering of, oh yeah, I'm infinite.
Yeah, because we are.
Yeah, you're so like excited right now. Me too. It's crazy.
I know.
Yeah. It's great. Remember that. Be grateful for that.
I'm so grateful every single day. I'm aware, because you know, once you know what you are, or what you just get a glimpse or see a little bit of what you are, it's just so magical and hopeful. You know, like I just have to like pinch myself. I'm just so happy, and nothing's changed. Everything's the same. I just have become so much more grateful, because, you know, it doesn't matter if you're not where your parents want you to be in your life. And a lot of us have very difficult childhoods, and that's why I say, how did you get into this? Because I find a lot of us have the same story. We were just very empathetic as children, very understanding and intuitive and questioning, and we didn't back down, and we're almost like rebels of the system.
Hell yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, I'm a huge Star Wars nerd, and like I really look at that as a great metaphor for where we are. It's like, you know, there are warriors of light, there are sorcerers of darkness, and you know, if you're naive to that, you could get into trouble. But if you're aware of that and you've experienced kind of the circumference of both realms, that maybe you can come out of that and be like a Gnostic warrior, a spiritual soldier of sorts, you know, to kind of try and bring balance back to the force.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because a lot is out of balance, and you start realizing it's not you. It's everything. It's how you, because you were fighting that. And I remember as a child saying, this is not right. You know what I mean? Like, why am I the child but being talked down to? Like, I don't know anything, but I know more than my parents even know about reality. And I find, like you said, we talk down to children and we don't really recognize that these little souls, well, they're not so little, but they just came from heaven. And
they just got to the party, you know, like
and
they just got here.
They have something to tell us, and they have something to share, and they're very,
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I find that you get from the children, and I've been meeting so many, not children, but younger people, and the first thing they say is, oh, wow, you don't look like your age. And I'm like, 30 isn't old, bitch.
I know, when you're a kid, like, you totally think you're like, whoa, 30? That's like so old. But yeah, you're right. Because we're conditioned to believe that the kind of standard narrative in the Western world, and probably the world, but I'll speak to where we live in America. The standard narrative is, well, you go to school, you get an education, you go to college, you get a job, you find a partner, you settle down, you have a kid, you buy a house, and then you just wait to die. And, it's like, maybe you go on some vacations 2 weeks a year. That's it. No more fun than that. Yeah. 2 days off during the week. And, don't have too much fun. Don't go and do these things because they're illegal, but take these prescription drugs. And if you need a little energy, just drink a bunch of coffee or Red Bull or whatever. And then, get drunk on the weekend so you can forget that at all and forget about your, your zombified robotic life. But that's kind of how we're conditioned and we're primed. And so we think that, like, oh, well, like, I should complete my life and everything that I know about life by the time I'm 30. But you still have, like, hopefully, if you're healthy and active and, can keep a good mind, you still have like 50, maybe 60 years left. Like, that's a long time. I see people that are doing amazing things. This guy I'm friends with, he's 73. He works out every day. He's in good shape, good health. You just wrote a book. He still travels, solo trips to Africa and Iceland. It's like, wow. live your life like to the fullest, because you have a long one, and we're not supposed to just like end it at 30 and just be like, oh, well, that's it now. But we've been conditioned to believe that. Yeah.
I'm a little bit like, what do you mean I don't look 30? Like, how am I supposed to turn to a grandma as soon as I turn 32? Like, what the fuck? Like, and I'm like, I say my age because I'm like, I still feel 18. You know what I mean? I still dress 18. I still go to the parties, So like, I don't have kids. My partner and I don't want kids right now. We want to have fun and we want to live our lives. And we don't want to like follow the rules, but at the same time, we just have all this pressure, and you're just like, you have to have these boundaries and understand that living your best life is going to piss some people off, but that's cool because you're here to do something awesome and something nobody's ever done, or like in your own way. I mean, nobody's ever done it. Yeah. A lot of people have done it, but just in your own way. And not
in your own way, and for your own time too.
Your own time, and like not be afraid to just like have fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, fun. I think fun should be the number one priority.
Yeah, and I just find like the older I get, the more fun I have. Like the more you get good at what you do. You know yourself.
So did you felt that way? Like, did you feel like when you started getting into like the quantum kitty realm that people were like, "What are you doing?" and why are you doing this? Or?
I felt that people felt that I should be thinking about other things. Like my parents were like, hello, marriage. Hello.
Right, yeah. I remember you told me that.
What are you doing? Like, when are you going to like get married? When are you going to like have babies? And like that's the most important thing in my life, apparently. And I just was just like, well, yeah, but I just want to do it when I want to do it. Like, I don't want to do it just because I have to. You know, I have
Yeah.
so much love to give, and I don't think it's just to a child. It's to everyone. You know, you start realizing that
Sure.
relationships are so tricky because you're just like, I feel this unconditional love to everyone. It's not this romantic love, but it's this unconditional love where you're just like,
Sure.
you know, like, and it's like, not like you can have a best friend that's a guy, you know, and like relationships like that where like normal people they're just like, well, what's that about? But you're just like, no, we're like psychedelic, so we're all energy.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. It's just that they're trapped in the kind of limited linguistic and symbolic creation of the of this particular kind of one slice of this particular game that's been created. The dominator game is like Terrence McKenna would say, you know, like dominator culture and stuff, you know. But yeah, I experience that too, and I think that it's because people have such an investment in the kind of script in which they've written you in their life. You know, it's like, and the script that they have invested in, the story that they've bought into. And when you start to kind of deviate from that, it can almost feel like it's a condemnation of their lifestyle, their choices, their values. And that can be very fracturing because it's like you're going out and you're venturing into the unknown.
Yeah.
And they want to do that, but they've invested so much time in this other thing, and they just kind of are projecting their fear onto you.
Yeah, and like that's when you asked me where I was when I started this whole thing. That's where I was. I was just having fun, and I didn't want to grow up, and I didn't want to have responsibilities, and I didn't want a fucking job, you know, like, I don't want any of that. I wanted to live my life the way I wanted to do it, and I thought, I want to do what I love, and, like, that's why I was, like, painting yesterday, and, like, I just woke up, you know, doing my regular thing, you know, and as soon as I wake up, wash my face, brush my teeth, go and paint, find myself 3 hours later, haven't eaten anything, nothing, no music, just painting. And you're like, oh shit, I actually did it. Like, this is my life. And like, nothing's changed but the work ethic, the motivation, the drive, the love, the passion. And that's when you're just like, oh, I love everything.
Yeah. And it's easy to do that way once you just like tilt the telescope of your perception of reality slightly, like 1 degree to the left, and you're like, oh, this is a whole new opportunity. And then you keep expanding on that, you see more and more stuff. And like, I could tell just from, we're, you know, virtual right now, but I feel your energy, I feel your presence, and I like, you have a glow and a brightness about you and in your eyes too that only comes from when people are doing this kind of thing. So many people have dead eyes. You look in their eyes and they're just dead. Yeah. And that's heartbreaking to me.
Yeah. I'm very self-aware of that. It's difficult because you see, I was in that trap too. Like we all have to, like, you just have to ask yourself, are you happy and are you willing to invest in yourself? Not things. I don't go out and buy things for myself. The only thing I buy are art supplies. I'm supposed to be planning a wedding. I buy art supplies. Like, just like, screw this art supplies, you know? And like, that's how I find the artist is. Everything comes last. I live in a really shitty neighborhood because I want my rent down, because I want to make amazing art. Like, that's just how we are. We live, we breathe, and it doesn't matter. Like, my partner was talking about like the art world, and he's against the art world and all of this stuff, and I agree. I'm not seeking validation from the art world. I don't care about that. But it's
like the art gatekeepers or whatever, right?
Yeah. And he's not really into that and all that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but when you're a psychedelic artist, you do what the fuck you want. You don't care about all the other, you know, who accepts you and any clout, or, you know, do people like, who cares? I like it, you know? Like,
it's not like, oh, well, this is good, but it's not quite this level of a Rembrandt. It's like, yeah, motherfucker, we're inventing new shit. Like, there's a whole, the canvas is there's no structure, there's no boundaries. There's no limits. Just create. And
yeah, so that's where I found myself years ago, is just like having to figure out who I was, what I am. I was so alienated from myself. You know, we are all so alienated from ourselves because we put our attention to things that don't matter.
Yeah, but it's easy to, right? It's like, it's especially in today's time. I mean, I guess in maybe all times, but more so in this time,
Yeah.
it's so easy to just put our attention to things that are calling us, that are saying like, "Hey, look at this over here. This is like a shiny, flashy, cool thing." Like, "Hey, look at Instagram has new story features," like, or whatever, binging Netflix shows and stuff. And we all do. I do it. I get caught up in some of that stuff, but then I'm always like, "Oh wait, oh yeah, I forgot. I should be doing this instead."
And I'll actually have lucid dreams. And my lucid dreams will tell me, do a video.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's just been, I don't know what the hell changed, but it was unwavering, like, self-knowing and following the intuition and following that feeling into creating your new life. Because it's just like, how did you become Mikeadelic? A lot of people ask me.
I fell into a vat of ayahuasca that was next to a radio station, and I just merged. I came out like it's a good comic book story.
It is. That is. I'm telling you, you should definitely get into comic books. I would buy them for you. I love it.
Maybe I will.
I
yeah.
love it. Like, and I actually have been thinking, like, I want to invest in some art too. Like, I want to buy a painting from one of my friends. Like, now that you start creating, and like, hopefully soon I'll have enough money. Then I'm just like, after selling one of these, and I don't even want to. That's the thing. I don't even want to sell this one because it's just like, I was feeling so horrible, right? I just wasn't feeling well because I was really sick. And when you're like sick and you're just been around people and your energy's really low, I'm like, damn, I don't really feel well. And like, I go next to the painting and I'm like, damn, I feel really good. And it's just because I've been using crystals and 24 karat gold and, wire and all of this like stuff within the painting and root oils. And it's just like, I feel so good. I'm just like, this is good stuff, man. This is like, it's like drugs, like bliss, like, and
totally.
And it's just like, I'm feeling this way constantly. So I don't know if I want to get rid of that painting, but I will probably make another one. It's another thing I realize how easy it is to like recreate things. So.
Yeah, that's definitely like I think a big point of conflict. Like we were talking before we were recording about like how, like what you have to make a living or do these things, and it's like we're kind of, we want to just be able to just create and share and like have this kind of way of reciprocity and gifting and stuff, but it makes it really difficult in the monolithic control system of money. It's like, okay, well, there's one particular, and now with cryptocurrency emerging, like there's kind of more options, but it's still kind of in its infancy, and I'm really excited about what blockchain and crypto can do. And I still don't know like a ton about it, but I think that might be a better medium for exchange. More diverse forms of currency that are backed by different kinds of things. Like I recently discovered this thing called Aya coin, and it's basically a cryptocurrency that is sort of backed by ayahuasca and jungle preservation of the Amazon. So when you buy a part of the coin, you're essentially buying what you consider to be the value behind that coin, which is like preserving the rainforest and stuff. And I might be kind of wrong on that. I'm not totally sure. Like I said, I'm not an expert on this stuff, but I heard about them. I checked out their website, and it seems like that's what they're trying to do. So I think that could be cool. And then we can create and we could do things, and you don't have to kind of have this weird feeling of like, well, yeah, this is my painting and I'm selling it for $3,000, and it's like, hey, I'm doing something and I'm giving it to someone and they're giving something to me and we're also giving something to the earth. And it's
Yeah.
like, if we can figure out, if our kind of generation now can figure out how to do something like that, I think it'll kind of really open up the door for a lot of people who might be timid and not want to take a step into the creative field because, right, like what do we hear when we're growing up? Like, oh, I want to get an art degree. And it's like, oh, you got to get a business degree. You know, at least that was the narrative that I heard, is like, you got to do something that you got to get a degree that when you get into the workforce, you can apply it to something. What are you going to use the philosophy degree for? What are you going to use this degree for? It's like, well, what about just like what kids want and like what we want in the world? Like, let's just pursue that. Like, why are we limited to this particular narrative?
Well, the thing is, I find that we are just interested in whatever will make us money, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's just not how I ever was. Like, I just didn't care. Like, I didn't want, all my friends were going to school for business and for finance. I just didn't care. I just didn't care. Like, I don't care about banks that much. Like, I don't care about.
No.
I mean, I like money. Money is like it allows me a certain lifestyle that I have to live in this control system prison that we have. But I mean, it's not like, it's energy. So my time,
right,
and the energy spent is what I and labor, and also, you know, for costs, you know, I put that into everything. But yeah, it's kind of that weird thing, and I understand my partner also. He's a socialist. He's like, you know, like not just always talking about, you know, anti-capitalism and like, yeah, I get it. Like we're there. It sucks. It sucks.
Well, system... yeah, I'm not. I didn't want to give the impression that maybe I fit into that category because I'm not that at all. Yeah.
But I know it is. It sucks. It does suck.
Yeah.
And it only benefits the very, you know, few rich.
Right. Like, but you just said it's money is like, it's just energy, right? Because it's you're putting your time, your effort, and your energy into birthing something into being.
Yeah.
You know, you as human beings, we have this amazing brain that allows us to come up with images and movies in our mind and ideas, and then somehow, some way, we, like magicians, it appears in the world. It's just mediated by time and effort and energy. And then so it's like, okay, cool. Like I did that. Now I kind of need to get something back for that, you know, as well. And that's fair, yeah. But there's only kind of really one or two, you know, an emergent two right now, predominant forms of that kind of exchange. Yeah. But, you know, like we were talking about festivals before, like I went to this festival called Sonic Bloom here in Colorado, and they have artists painting, musicians playing, and all kinds of interesting, diverse things. Like you can sit in a gong circle and have like a gong bath, and, you know, fortune tellers and tarot and oracle and all this stuff while music's happening. And it's just like that kind of complexity and novelty and diversity in that environment is awesome. And people are walking around and they're like, oh, that's a cool headband, you know? And I'm like, oh, here, have it, you know? And someone, oh, that's awesome. And then I saw that person like 3 days later and they're like, oh, I wanted to give you something. And it's like this kind of different energy, and I know something can be created out of that. I don't know what, but I know that there's more options than just like Federal Reserve promissory notes.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I find that bartering is a great way to, you know, go around it. It seems like the obvious, you know, like you have something to offer, I have something to offer. That's kind of how it was done back in the day. You know what I mean?
Totally. Collaboration.
Yeah, somebody would be a seamstress and somebody would make the yarn, you know, for the fabric, and somebody would dye the fabric. You know what I mean? So like 3 different people had to like be cooperating with each other.
Cooperating, right? Yeah.
This one thing.
and you probably know them too.
Yeah.
You know, and we lived in kind of smaller territorial units and had more of a community form of living. Yeah. You probably knew them. They might even be members of your family. Like I remember when I was in Vietnam, a lot of the places I noticed, it was like they had the business on the bottom floor, and then on the top floor where the family lived. And a lot of the times it was the family, not just like mom, dad, kids, grandma, grandpa, cousins, uncles, brothers, sisters, like all that whole, maybe 15, 20 people in a couple of floors of a house above a business, and they all work there. And it's like, then they know the people next door, the shoemaker, the candlestick maker, or whatever, and they that's a different kind of energy too, because you're sort of invested in each other's lives. This kind of mode that we have now, it's everything's an abstraction. You just click on something, you order it from Amazon, and it's delivered to you in a day. Who are the nameless, faceless people that are toiling away in the factories and then trucks driving all this stuff to get it to us? There's no like attachment there to that process, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree with you. That's why I love Etsy, because it's just like they're real people, and it's not a big giant corporation, and it's an actual person, and things are actually handmade.
Yeah, they're a great website.
Yeah, I like I thought about like selling on Amazon. I'm like, nah.
Yeah, I mean, I use Amazon too. It's like, it's convenient. It's easy.
It's convenient and it's easy, but I rather, because the quality is better, the artisanship is better.
Oh,
the
for sure.
Craftsmanship is better. It's just all around. There's so much more thought. When I get certain packages, it's like this Reiki healer has put it in purple tissue paper, and like gold wrapping and all this stuff, and like they just put and somebody at Amazon's just gonna slap it in a box, and it's probably gonna be a robot.
I was looking for a toy to get my niece for her birthday, and I was on Amazon, and she's obsessed with Trolls, the Trolls movie, and like Princess Poppy is the thing. And I was trying to find the right one, and I'm reading all these reviews. They're like, don't buy this one. It doesn't speak English. It speaks Chinese, and this one's defective, because people are just making these like knockoffs, and through marketing and sleek maneuvering, they can put their stuff on there and sell it to you, and then you never know. But I think, like, I recently got these like embroidered, designed things. It says plant more trees. Nice. And I got it it's a simple thing. I just got it at a little street fair, but I appreciate it more. Like, I talked to the woman who made it, like learned a little bit about her, like followed her on Instagram and bought her stuff, and like kind of supported someone in the local community. Do you think that, like, as we're in this like big kind of technological apparatus where you can get stuff on Amazon delivered to you in like a millisecond, I kind of see that there's also like a return to kind of crafting and creating, as you're doing with your paintings and these like embroidered things and pottery, just this like maker movement coming back, like local stuff. Do you think that's kind of having a resurgence?
I definitely think so. I mean, I buy things like that. I like to get handmade stuff, like when I get my smudge sticks, I get them on Etsy. I don't get them on Amazon, like that's just like a duh, I mean, there's certain things that you just like, I mean, it could come faster and cheaper, but the thought, and like, you can't get a rose smudge stick on Amazon the way I make them, or the way a lot of other people make them. You just can't get that. Like, you can't find that in stores like that. I've tried looking. That's why I made them.
Yeah, totally. And like, you're right. You can feel like the love and the energy that was put into the creation by this particular person.
Just how beautiful it is. Because like, what Amazon will do is like, it's a manufacturer that will just put roses or like different, herbs and just wrap it. Well, when you're going to an artist, or florist or a farmer or a gardener that's, you know, has their own farm. And, you know, and they're picking their own stuff, and they're making, like, a lot of these are farms making them, and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, you can't find that on Amazon anywhere. You can't
Nothing compares to it.
You can't even find that where you are. Like, that's just like some place where you have to be around like a healer, like a shaman, to find that.
For sure, yeah.
So that's why, like,
well, yeah, and that's like when I lived down in the jungle, like the brewing of ayahuasca, it's very, very important during the brewing process for the healers who are brewing it to sing it the Icaros and imbue it with like their love and their creativity and their intentions. And you can also go the other way too. It could just be kind of like dark, right? Like, I mean, I think that the energy that we put into our creations, you can kind of feel that energetic reverberance or resonance rather to it. And recently I was talking about people here in Denver, we decriminalized mushrooms, and, you know, people are talking about growing mushrooms, and it's like really putting love and care and attention into the mushrooms. You can feel the difference, I think, when you get that product, just like you would from, you know, a local farmer growing apples or anything like that. You can taste the difference. You can feel the difference.
Yes, definitely, for sure. There's a little bit of a lag. I don't really know why. But yeah, you could definitely feel the difference when it comes to mushrooms. Another thing I would suggest everybody do for mushrooms: put some ormus in your water when you're misting the mushrooms, or when you put the spore cake in the water. Well, I like to put ormus water in there, and the vibration of the mushrooms are on another level. It's just like, they're amazing. Every single experience is enlightening with those types of mushrooms. You know what I mean? There is no ego death. There's only like evolution. It's just the little things like that where like a normal person wouldn't really think to do that, you know?
Yeah. No, it's so many things can happen once you start experimenting and collaborating with other people. I mean, you just gave me that idea. I'm gonna go maybe try that or tell someone about it. Like, oh yeah, I heard about that, but you know what else is good? Add this.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, the freedom to have that. It helps.
Ormus is great for mushrooms. For some reason, they just, I mean, why wouldn't you put it on plants? Why not put it on mushrooms, right? Same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just great to see where we're heading, you know, as a culture, as a collective. Individually, yeah, you know, there's we can create change, but I think that there's not enough. And I think that, like you said, going out there, getting in touch with the others, finding the others, starting groups, starting meetups, starting, becoming more like, because I asked another friend of mine, a person that I know, and I'm like, what do you think the next step is? And she's like, getting involved with politics, being involved within communities, starting to change lives.
Smart friend, yeah.
But she's a lawyer.
Yeah.
But she's a woke lawyer.
Yeah, totally. No, I've been thinking about this a lot lately because, you know, you can kind of get into this zone. I think we all go through stages in our evolution. Like, I'm sure, you know, if you go on my Facebook and you like look back at like pictures from like 2011 or 2012, like I'm just like, my pupils are dilated in every picture, and I have like glow sticks around my head and like in my ears, and you know, like I definitely just indulged in the party aspect of it, and it's great, and I still do to a certain extent. Yeah. But I think now I'm more interested in like, what do I do with this? Like, when I keep visiting the psychedelic realm and I keep getting messages and knowledge, and what now? How do I plug this back into this reality? How can I create in the way that I see creation happen in the DMT space? Like, they're like, oh, look at this, look at that, look at this, whoop, whoop, whoop. Like, look at what we're creating. It's like, hey, can you do that? Can I do that in this material realm? Like, and I think we can, you know, I think the way of doing it is totally getting involved. And I see, like, here in Denver, since when, you know, cannabis is legal, mushrooms have been decriminalized.
Guys, you're so
the
lucky.
foot's in the door. The foot's in the door. Like, the Trojan horse, so to speak, has entered the building. And for all of us to, you know, all of us psychedelic warriors to get out of the horse and not, you know, sack the city, but to change things for the better according to more of a value system of love and reciprocity, compassion, empathy, because I believe that we're totally capable of doing that. You know, and I think that a lot of people maybe in our generation have felt we've caught a lot of flack, you know, like a lot of these millennials, they're lazy and like they're ruining the world and all this stuff. It's like, well, yeah, we kind of do want to like ruin your world, but not in the sense of destroying anything. We just want to make a better version. We want to create a better piece of artwork that, you know, when people are walking through the art gallery of the planet, they look at what we've created and go, oh, that looks interesting. Let's go hang out over there.
Yeah.
But I think Buckminster Fuller's quote of like, you don't change things by fighting the existing paradigm. You change things by creating a new one that makes the old one obsolete. And I'd like to think that might be a good course to take for us.
Yeah. So I definitely agree. You know, like, I think that's why I decided to start doing art and like stuff like that, because I wanted like tangible, physical, you know, something within 3D that I'm like, I did that. You know what I mean? So I find that we can manifest and create objects just like the self-transforming machine elves, because we too are self-transforming machine elves.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That's a great. I just want to kind of like go off on the self-transforming part a little bit, because it's like, yeah, like this stuff happens not by some kind of top-down hierarchical, you know, command system of like, okay, you create the. No one's ordering you to like start painting and creating other than maybe your cosmic muse, you know, but it's like the nudge. It's like, hey, like do this, you know, but this stuff happens by spontaneous self-organization. One of the coolest things that I think is Susan Solnit, I think, talked about like compassion and reciprocity in like disaster situations. And I experienced this and you did too. You experienced, like we talked about this, I think, last time on my show when Hurricane Sandy hit New York.
Yeah.
And that, it was terrible. And it was like this terrible thing. But one of the things that I noticed and took away from it was this weird, amazing thing. I lived in the Lower East Side of Manhattan at the time. And I come down out of my apartment because the power's off and everything. And people are just on the street going up to each other like, hey, how are you doing? Are you okay? Like, do you need a quarter for the payphone? Like, I got you. Don't worry. Like, people help each other and they're nice. It's not this like anarchy and like everyone's fucking stabbing each other. I mean, sure, there's some people that are looting and you're always going to have that element. But predominantly, people can self-transform, self-organize, and voluntarily come together to collaborate and create things that we collectively find to be valuable and useful and good.
You know, when you said that, the same thing happened where I was living in Brooklyn. It was the same thing. People were helping one another. Nobody was looting. And everybody was just, I remember there was this grocery store and it was the only one that had power and things. And like they were giving away iPhone chargers and they're like, you can charge your phone here if you want. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, like that's crazy. Everybody's working together so nicely.
Yeah.
And it's because this tragedy.
Everyone's working together and no one's demanding it. There's no like disaster law that says like when a disaster happens, you must do this. People are just doing it because that's what people do. That's what we've always done. Help each other out.
Yeah, exactly. So seeing that we both took that away from Sandy is very interesting because I saw the same thing, and I'm like, oh wow, everybody's actually helping one another. You know what I mean? Like, people are
yeah. I didn't see any looting either, by the way. I just like threw that in there because I know that happens sometimes. But maybe there was like no. Like maybe it was all just like peace and helping out because I don't remember anything negative happening there.
Neither do I. In fact, I remember stores constantly giving things away for free, people being kind to one another. Nobody was fighting. Like you would think.
I didn't see it either.
You would think all that stress would add like, you know, there would be a riot, but it's not.
So it's. I think it's such an important moment in time to reflect on and to talk about because it really shows the perseverance, the will, and the love of the human heart and soul to come together. And you know, when we do that, amazing things can happen. If we can come together and just give someone a quarter who needs to use a payphone or hand out someone a water or a phone charger, imagine what we could do with like, you know, ominous looming global issues.
Yeah. Exactly. I do feel that there is, you know, the veil is being lifted for a lot of people, and there needs to be some type of change, like actual change. So I find that people coming together, people, you know, meeting up, meetups would be great. Getting active within your community is getting great. Doing
definitely
volunteering. Stuff like that really helped me when I was in my dark night of the soul and I was trying to find myself. I volunteered for like 2 years at a homeless shelter, and that really helped me in that moment, just connect to somebody when I had absolutely no connections, you know.
Totally, yeah.
And
I bet that made you feel good too, doing that, right?
I mean, of course, you know, I had to, because living in Manhattan and living this very privileged experience, and when I mean by privileged, I mean not being homeless.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. People are making these high salaries, but we're still kind of suffering. Like, it's inflation and things have become expensive.
Yes.
Landlords have gotten monopolies over, you know, housing.
The Lord of the land.
Yeah. And it's just like, and now like our rents, you know, are astronomical because we have to be in cities to be able to live and afford things. So, there just needs to be this awareness that, like, you know, we should feel grateful and lucky and privileged that we are not starving or you know, homeless. So that's where that's where it came from, that I was just so grateful that I was just like, it would be silly if I just did nothing, because like I was around it. And I'm around it now in my neighborhood. You know, I live in Newark. It's a really tough neighborhood. But it's just like the sense of community. I've never felt that in the Upper East Side.
and that's really all we need. That's like the biggest predictor of health, more than anything else, more than diet, exercise, or anything, is like the sense of community that you have. I think there was this book my mom had called Blue Zones, and it talked all about these, what they call like blue zones, according to the Happy Planet Index. They did a survey, and they discovered that areas around the Mediterranean and areas around Japan and some other areas were these, you know, they had like a diet high in omega-3s and healthy oils and things like that, which led to some good cognitive functioning and overall health. But also there was, in these particular areas, the communities were really tight knit and strong, and that's the biggest predictor of mental health and well-being, more so than anything else. We need each other. We're social creatures, you know. Like I oftentimes think about, like, what would we say? How do we explain like our current time right now to somebody who like came from the past or the future, or like some alien that came down, like if some alien just like popped into your room right now and was like, "Hey, what's up? I'm just visiting here. I just want to know, like, what's your deal? Like, what do you guys do here?" on this planet. It's like, well, you know, we just make weapons and we like bomb people, and then you know, we also, yeah, we just got like these buildings that we go in and we sit in these boxes all day and like press on these keys, and then we have this paper that we exchange. And some people don't have paper, so they just like live on the street and dig through garbage. They'd be like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what is this? What is this? Like, what kind of design is this? And yeah, the homeless thing is big, actually. Ever since moving to Denver, like I've noticed that it's kind of a thing here, because it really wasn't before. And you know, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. It's like, we don't have any room in our modern world that allows for people to just kind of check out from the dominant game. It's like, if you don't conform to the mainstream dominant paradigm of what our society and culture dictates and demands that you conform to, then you're just kind of left in the trash heap. And like, that definitely doesn't seem sane. Yeah, or compassionate.
That's what I was saying. So as a child, you just picked up on how our world is in this state of psychosis, or people are in a state of psychosis, and they're just doing what they don't really love or have any passion for, but just to survive and get a paycheck, because they got to survive. Or because if they don't, then like, well, what else is there? You know, living.
Yeah, and psychedelics can help you see that there's more. You know, and or any kind of altered state of consciousness that you want to get into, whether it's, you know, dream interpretation and really kind of practicing lucid dreaming, or meditation, yoga, you know, and like flow states that people can get into, painting, art, like all these fields. And you throw psychedelics in there, you know, you really unshackle the mind and let it roam free and in the endless, eternal canvas of reality.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing?
It is. It is.
Oh man, I'm excited.
Me too.
It's a good time to be alive. It's
definitely.
You know, there is a lot of really shitty things happening, and there's a lot of really shitty people, and it's just how you said the hierarchical system or the institution is. And I feel that a lot of people are waking up. Do I think anything's going to happen? I don't know, because look at this whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. You know,
I know, yeah.
It's just like, I mean,
yeah.
It's there, and it's like, why aren't people enraged more?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, Samina. I mean, I like Noam Chomsky's and Neil Postman's like views on these things. Actually, there's a great book I would highly recommend everyone read called "Amusing Ourselves to Death" by Neil Postman, and he talks about how there were these two visions of the world by these great authors: Aldous Huxley with his book Brave New World, and George Orwell with 1984. And you know, they're kind of both these dystopian books that have been, you know, acclaimed, and they're excellent, and sort of almost a prophetic vision of where we could be going. And so he looks at it as like, well, maybe we're not in this like Orwell world where there's this direct opposition control, like you wake up and somebody's like forcing you and having you in shackles, but there's this kind of more invisible control system that we're voluntarily choosing, because it's our pleasures, it's our desire for immediate gratification that's going to kind of do us in a sense where we're not aware of like what else is going on. We're not aware of all these other, you know, Epsteins and these tragedies and, you know, wars and police, you know, all this crazy stuff that happens because it gets drowned out and like, hey, the new Netflix show, or like, hey, like the new, you know, this thing, that thing, like focus on this, pay attention to that. Like, you know, the necessary illusions.
I just find that, you know, there's a whole entire like YouTube industry for this called Pizzagate.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
these people are with pitchforks. Like, what the fuck? This is real. This
Yeah.
isn't like a conspiracy. This is real, and it's documented, and it's been documented, and human trafficking is a real thing, and it's not just children. It's like people, people, for organs, for sex work, for working overseas as maids. I mean, this is an actual thing.
Right.
And the fact that just because we're born in a certain country, that our lives are drastically different, and we're just supposed to be like, oh, well, that's not our reality, you know, so like, this is our reality. That's going to affect us, you know.
Yeah, totally, yeah.
And it has, and it will. And I find that's why when it's not like this whole thing where like we're just countries, you know, and we're not like, we need to realize that something in one part of the world is always going to affect the other, you know, because we're all connected.
We're all connected. Yeah, totally. Yeah. 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 And it's like, you know, these things that happen, it's like you can totally kind of check out from them, you know, and you can kind of just check into the Hotel California and, you know, just kind of like, you know, go to all these spots and do all these things. Just keep going to festivals and keep going to gong baths and keep going to ayahuasca ceremonies and all that stuff is good. And I recommend doing that stuff. But if that's all you do, you can kind of get lost up. You know, you can convert it to the ego game. You can convert it to the spirit, to the material game, and use it as like an ornament or a trophy of how woke you are, as opposed to being like, okay, cool, I'm doing this, I'm getting messages, it's telling me to do this and to do that, to be more creative or to be more loving, and then actually implement that. And I think that's, in my opinion, I think that's one of the most valuable things about the psychedelic experience is taking what you've learned and taking what you know and then kind of like warrioring up and being like a light worker in the world.
I also see that there's just like this dismantling almost of like reality, you know, and things are just becoming a little bit weirder, you know, and like, it's just like, am I living in this weird world of imagination, or am I living, you know, in America on a globe, you know, like you start realizing, you're just like, wait a minute, it all seems like I'm just living within the collective imagination, you know, and experiencing it, and like that's
well, we totally are. Like I think I mean, thoughts become things, and the prevailing thought system, kind of general consensus reality, is the reality that we're all creating every moment of the day, every time that we decide to do something that feeds into that system and feeds into that lie, you know, or that control system. And you know, if you can see that and detach yourself from that, or try and detach yourself from that as much as possible, that a new reality can emerge, or multiple new realities can appear. Like you said, there is this fractalization of like realities, and things are kind of getting back into the weird. You know, you have the resurgence of like the occult and you know, different kinds of practices and belief systems and magic and psychedelics and shamanism and all of these things that, you know, exposure to elite secret groups and societies and all this stuff, UFOs and encounters. And this is a weird time to be alive, but there's something happening, and there's a lot of the people that are in all of these separate camps can get attached to like their one version of reality, but I think it's a lot stranger than that, and we're going to find out where it goes. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I mean, it just seems like I'm living in this like weird future, and first off, I thought we'd have like way more like advanced technology other than like cars, you know. I thought we'd be flying.
Yeah, I wanted a hoverboard,
right?
You know,
that's right,
like Marty from Back to the Future.
But yeah, that's why I really got into lucid dreaming, because like, I mean, it starts making you realize I can have, or what's going on in my sleep state. Where am I? You know, what is my brain doing? Am I
Yeah.
really resting? How come I'm awake when I'm supposed to be resting? Where am I going?
Yeah.
Am I just going?
You're just always woke. That's the thing. It's like you're not. They're like, nah, you can't sleep. We're just gonna keep you awake all the time.
I'm not awake all the time. I'm not awake all the time. I have to tell everyone that just because, like, there are days where I'm completely lucid in the whole entire day, but it doesn't happen like all the time. You know, like there most of the time you are unconscious, and then I'll remember certain things, and it's just like it'll be a trigger. Like I will be in like my everyday life, and then like I'll remember something, and I'm like, oh, and then a whole bunch of information will come with like understanding and learning from that experience. So it's just it's all very interesting. I find that the dream space, like I'm just it makes me question like where we are. Are we ever asleep? You know, because like when you're awake, when you're sleeping, you're seeing yourself be very active. You know, like it's like your mind, like you're in your mind. Are you always in your mind?
Mm-hmm.
Is that where you are?
Maybe. Yeah. It's definitely. I definitely love to investigate these kinds of things. So. Yeah, and I think the conclusions that we come to on our own are valid too. You know, like investigate your inner world, investigate your experience, compare notes. You know, go look up what people are saying and say that makes sense, that resonates for me, or that happened to me, and you can kind of like calibrate more towards a version of like ordered complexity in a constructed world that like you vibe with, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So, like, what advice would you give to people that are, you know, on this path? Because, like, we're starting out. Because I've met two people recently that, like, I've met in, like, everyday life that, like, have started their awakening, or they're going through some shitty stuff that started their awakening, and they were talking about like ancestral trauma, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're going through it.
Right. Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
and they're just like, oh, you know, could you be my mentor? And I'm like, I don't even know what the fuck I'm doing.
Well, that's the thing, is nobody really does. Nobody knows. No one knows. There's no, like, in my opinion, there's no penultimate truth really that someone has, that someone knows, that they're like, you know, hey, this is the way that it is, and this is the objective truth.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think be weary of those people. Like, that's, I think, a piece of advice I would say is be weary of people who say, I know. Be like, I'll show you the way I know. Just, you know, all you have to do is go to the top of a mountain and, you know, take some peyote and stand on one foot and release a pair of doves and sing, you know, some Sanskrit hymn. And then that's the thing to do. Do that, and that'll get you the knowledge. And it's like, okay, maybe that's like one of the pieces like along the journey, but the journey never ends. Stay open and continue to keep going in your evolution and your journey, and be conscious of the fact that if you do choose to walk this path, that you're also opening yourself up to the dark side as well. You know, back to Star Wars. It's like, really, you know, if you look at the theme of the Star Wars movies, it's all about the balance of the Force and the balance of that power. If you go too far into the machine realm, the material realm, the state realm, really, you know, which is the Darth Vader character, you know, he's given himself up, and Joseph Campbell talks about this, which I love that he mentioned this, but he gives himself up to this machine state role, and in the process of that, he's this wormy, kind of disfigured figure. And if you look at like all the movies and all the stories about like good versus evil, the evil people are mostly, for the most part, disfigured, or, you know, something's wrong with them because the power that they're trying to hold for themselves is corrupting them and burning them. Fire can cook your meal, but it can also light you on fire as well, and set your house ablaze and destroy everything that you love. And so I think really when you're walking this path, you need to be weary and be ready to accept some hardcore challenges that are going to come your way. You mentioned the dark night of the soul, and I went through that too. This disillusionment or disenchantment with the accepting this path. Like if you feel that you have a gift, if you feel that you have a creative impulse, share that. Don't die with your song unsung. Don't run away from the call to the hero's adventure. Accept the burden and the sacrifice and the responsibility of your gift and bring it into this world, because we need you. Like you and I, we're limited in what we can do, but people that listen to your show, that listen to my show, there's people out there that are going to want to go and do their own things. They're going to be different than what we do, and that are going to be smarter and more creative, and just things that we could never even imagine. Message that I got from like the DMT space is like, hey, look at what we can create. Now the ultimate game is you go create, and we have no idea what you're going to create. And that's exciting. That's new and interesting. So yeah. And awakening, I think a lot of people have this idea that awakening is like, I'm just going to be like blissed out, like totally, and everything's going to be euphoric. Yeah. And I don't have to work to achieve that state, that it's just going to be that way. Like, oh, I wish I could be like the Dalai Lama, or I wish I could be like, one of these spiritual teachers, but it's diving into the like really actually ordinary and mundane process of doing the work. Yeah. That it's almost like kind of like, you would think that like the common misconception is that like you take psychedelics and you trip out and you see hallucinations, and then you're gonna see like a dragon or whatever, and that there's that it's this kind of process in which you're just imagining or whatever, but really there's something there, and there's something to pay attention to. And I think that like going through that process, it's not all just like fun games and seeing things. It's also challenges, and really kind of facing those challenges is, I guess, antithetical to what most people would say when they think of like someone who takes psychedelics or trips or something. It's just like, oh, they're just someone that wants to like check out, and they're living in this like fake world of hallucinations. It's like, no. If you're really getting the message, totally checking in to reality. You're getting a hyper version of reality. And if you're getting sent that message, there might be something there for you. So I don't want to say that this is like advice per se, but I would just say like from my experience, I felt like this has been valuable information for me to understand.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with people, because it's very important that they hear that. It's not how it is on Instagram, guys. We're not all just doing yoga all the time. Like, like for supposedly woke person, I don't do enough. Like, it's not like that. It's in, like you said, in the work, it's in the pain. It's in the identifying with the suffering and understanding that.
Right.
It's about,
like buying the paint materials from the store, getting the canvas, like doing all that stuff, taking action to bring your creative vision into the world. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. That was amazing doing. It just feels like you're, like actually, like I did it before, but there wasn't as much thought behind it. And I find the more you do it, the more you just, it's like OCD, and you just start seeing every aspect of it and loving it and understanding it more, because it's just like you're just seeing new things and creating new things. So, yeah.
Yeah, and actually I will give one piece of advice. The last thing I'll probably say is that you listen to the voice, the small voice inside of you that's screaming up the well of the human meat suit. Like, hey, listen to me and hear. It's like, follow that and measure that with what's outside, right? Like, so if something's saying like, hey, you need to start doing like interpretive dance. Oh, okay. Like, I never thought about that before. But don't push that down because it's like, well, I'm not a dancer. I'm not good enough. There's already enough better, there's just people that are better than me. And, I don't really know anything. And what would people say? And I won't be good, because that's all that is just bullshit. It's just the trash of culture being thrust upon us to make us feel small and make us feel like our lives aren't the lives that we should be living. It's like our stories are the stories that matter. If we don't tell them, then we're just reporting fake news into the world from our experience, and that doesn't do anyone any good,
Yes.
So
yes,
calibrate your experience and measure it, and listen to that small voice, and just follow that path. And when you do, doors will open where there were only walls once before.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I've been trying to, you can't really express, but
you're doing it. You're doing it.
I could try. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you want to be humble. You're going to be humble. I'll say you're doing it. You're creating amazing art. You're creating an amazing show. Yeah, you're doing it. You're walking the path.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it pat yourself on the back. It's okay.
Yeah, I definitely. It feels like I'm loving it. That's it. I just love it, and it's an honor. It's an honor, and that's what I'm saying. I'm so blessed, and it feels like such a blessing. And when people ask me, they're like, "How can I get started?" I'm like, I don't fucking know. I was in a state of psychosis, but
me too.
Do art.
Yeah. Maybe, hey, what you have to do? Just go crazy. Yeah, it's something that I've been saying a lot is, and I don't know if I invented this. I don't know. Maybe someone else said it. Who the hell knows? But I like the idea. It's sometimes you do have to go completely out of your mind so that you can open up your heart. You can go into your heart, go out of your mind to go into your heart. Like, it's like this mainstream dominator culture that we live in. It's like, oh, you can't go outside the normal 3x5 card of allowable opinion and thought and expression. If you go beyond those bounds, well, then you're wild, you're savage, you're unbounded, you're weird, you're not normal. There's this like disease of normalization that occurs in our world, and that kills creativity. Public schools kill creativity. They put everybody into this factory farm, into this and now we just live in this alien zoo of people that are just obsessed with shallow, superficial, material things. And it's like, here I go. I'm going off on another rant.
No, but you're so right. You're so right, though. The superficial nature of everything. You're just like, I guess that's all people will see. But then there are people that resonate, and they're just like, I've known, you begin to start opening yourself up, and people start opening themselves up to you.
Totally, that's it. Totally, music is the perfect analogy. It's even jam band music where it can get really improvisational. It's like we're all kind of just jamming our tune, and when you're jamming that tune at the festival, you're putting out a certain kind of vibrational energy that's like this field, and it's bringing people in. They're like, I like the sound of that. I'm gonna jam with you. Let's make something here, and that's one of the coolest things.
So I went to this festival or this techno thing with my fiance, and he was in the place bumping to the music, and I'm outside for 3 or 4 hours just talking to all these people while he keeps on coming back and forth. He's just because he knows, he's just I'm I like the connections. I'm all about talking about science and technology and consciousness and making mushrooms and how to make DMT and all that stuff. And these are the places where you could have these conversations. That's why I go to these things, because I can't talk to this to anybody. Like, I work from home, so I don't have any like outside contact, you know. I'm only my dog. And, you know, like a few people that like I allow within my life. So it's a good atmosphere, or it's good to like take, because I'm an introvert, you know what I mean? Like, it just like to be by myself. So I have to get outside, like I have to be forced and like, all right, you're going to this thing, and I'm like, all right, fine, and I hate it until I actually get there. It's just like, this is awesome. Why did I want to be cooped up?
Same, totally.
Yeah, I know. And my shadow is, I'm like that complainer. I'm just like, I don't want to do this. I'll go hang out.
But this is another good point that you're making here too, for people that are listening, and you know, you're asking about advice and stuff before, is like that this is how it is. It's like it's not that your shadow's going to go away. It's not that you're going to eradicate the part of you that you don't like. You're not going to like demolish it, destroy it, get rid of it. It's going to be there. It's going to be there. It's how you relate to that and how you manage that. And it's like, I always like to talk about it like a radio dial. I don't know, this might be an antiquated, you know, analogy, but like you're driving and your frequency is a little, you know, distorted. The channel is off. You're trying to just kind of calibrate it back to hearing a clear channel. And it just takes trying to remember that you can put your hand on the dial, you know, and that's the process.
That's another thing I wanted to ask you. What would you tell people that are like, you know, they're just like drained, or, you know, like they're in their negativity and like they don't know what to do about it. I find a lot of people like to push it away, and like they're not really, they don't, it like there is this misconception where just like, well, I become this kind person all the time, and like, no, sometimes I'm an asshole. But I become more aware, and how to like, how do you get in such a happy vibe where you can attract all of that stuff?
Totally, yeah. And I love being in a happy vibe, and I love being in like a blissed out state and things like that. But I'm not like that for the majority of my waking life. Like, I think that it's all about just awareness. Yeah. You know, I had this, I had an experience where I was driving, we were going camping. I was with my partner, and we were driving up to like the mountains in Colorado, and we got into this like debate that got kind of heated in the car. And then later on at the camping trip, like we had taken mushrooms, and I think like when I woke up the next morning that day, I started laughing, and I was laughing, and I'm laughing because I have the awareness to look back at what I was doing when we were in the car, and I'm like seeing myself, like there was a camera taking a video of me from above, and I'm like looking at myself from above, and I'm looking at how rigid I am, and how this is my story, and these are my beliefs, and this is what I stand for. And I just started cracking up. I'm like, what a douche. Like, what? I'm just like, I'm so attached to this like particular narrative at this point. It's so silly. It's so funny. And the awareness to look at that and then apologize and laugh about it and talk about it. It's all about how we bring awareness to the situation and just be real. Being as real as possible, being able to say like, you know what, I was being an asshole there, or I didn't see that thing, like, you know, and it's hard. We forget, you know, we forget all the time, and we need to just, you know, create a way where we can remember, and also create a space that is conducive for other people to feel comfortable approaching us to remind us. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, because I get so many, like, it's so funny. Somebody will come up to me and then start, like, vomit all of their stuff onto me. And I'm like, oh, hi. I'm an empath. I could feel all of that. But you start realizing that, like, people just, they need to be healed. They are on their path to healing. They're healing themselves. They're becoming more aware that there's something other than what they've been taught. And everybody has the same story where they feel so different. They feel very isolated. But the fact is, we're all feeling this way because we're going through something.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. We're going through the most tremendous thing of all time. And, yeah, to be a star in the sky that has been birthed into a meat vehicle that we call a body, to be like in the confines of this limited experience, it's tough. It's challenging.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, creating awareness and creating a space where awareness is and like reminders are available to you and other people, everyone's just kind of walking each other home, as Ram Dass says. Like, we're mirrors for ourselves, and if we can be there for each other with compassionate curiosity, I think we can communicate in a way better way. And maybe that's, Terence McKenna talked about this idea that we're limited by the constructs of our language. Maybe when we get more curious and more open with compassionate curiosity and compassionate inquiry and awareness, that we can develop new words and new constructs to understand each other and communicate with each other. Because all we're doing essentially is like, it's like telepathy mediated by small mouth noises that we're constructing into these vibrations that are then being transmitted into your mind, and then you're processing that and you're trying to come up with the best way that you know how to blah, 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 back to me. And there's a lot that can get lost in that process. So it's the communication aspect of things is huge. Yeah
Definitely. Let everybody know where they can find your YouTube channel, your Instagram, your social medias.
Yeah, so pretty much the main thing is my podcast. It's called Mikeadelic. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It goes to YouTube. I don't do too much YouTube stuff, but I think I've been getting the thing that's saying, "Hey, bitch, do some videos." So I might be doing more video stuff. My YouTube channel, I think, is just my name, Mike Brancatelli, or if you search Mikeadelic, it'll be on there. And then Instagram, it's Mikeadelic_podcast. And then my website is MikeBrank.com. It's all different stuff, I know. I'm sorry. But yeah, Mike, BRANC.com. And I have all kinds of stuff up there, too, that you can go check out. Yeah, thank you so much. This has been amazing.